Welcome back to the channels. My name is Thomas Fletcher, and I'm the host of both the LCSW Network and the Military Social Work Network. If you're new to both of my channels, please do me a favor by smashing that like button, by subscribing to the channels, and by sharing this video with your social work colleagues and friends. The purpose of both of these channels is to create a community of hope and support, where social workers can come for relevant news, information, and inspiration. Well, welcome back to another episode of Ask a Military Social Worker. So this one will really be an opinion piece. I mean, although all of my videos are my opinion only, my regular disclaimer is this video is not being sponsored, endorsed, or promoted by any military or governmental agencies. The views and opinions are mine alone. Yep, I always say that in most of my episodes. Sometimes I forget, but that disclaimer is true whether I say it or not. But this truly is my opinion, my viewpoint. So today I'm going to answer a hypothetical question about why is being a reservist or a National Guard service member really the best of both worlds? Or I would even say the best of three worlds. And let me explain what I mean by three worlds, right? So, if you're new to my channel, I am a military social worker with over 22 years of experience as a civilian social worker in the Department of Veterans Affairs, and over 14 years of experience as a uniform military social worker in both reserve components of the U.S. Army. And those two reserve components are the Army National Guard and the U.S. Army Reserve. Okay? So, my thesis for this video is being a reservist or a National Guard service member, social worker, is really the best of all three worlds. What do I mean by that? The three worlds that I'm referring to are civilian life, civilian social work employment, active duty social work service, and reserve social work service. So what I love about being a reservist, a National Guard service member, is that I am not on active duty 365 days like my brothers and sisters, God bless them. I have nothing but respect for them. They serve 365 days. They PCS all around the country, all around the world, providing social work, mental health, behavioral health services to our service members across all the branches now. Although I'm an Army guy, but I extend this statement, affirmation of respect to all of my active duty social workers that are not only in the Army, but in the Navy, in the Air Force, providing services to usmc, providing services to members of the Space Force, providing services to members of the U.S. Coast Guard, right? Wherever you are, I have nothing but respect. But what I love about being a reservist is I get to put on the uniform 1 weekend out of the month, 2 weeks in the summer usually. Occasionally I get to deploy, right? 5 years ago I was on active duty Title 10 orders in the Middle East. But at the end of that 180 days or so, I was able to come off of active duty orders and return to my civilian life. I was able to return to civilian employment at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Eventually I was able to return to reserve component duty at the time with the California Army National Guard. But being a reservist, I love it because I'm not on duty, again, 365 days for the Army. You know, I get to enjoy those inactive duty training with my battle buddies. You know, we see each other once a month. Sometimes it's MUTA 4, serving Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it's a MUTA 6. We serve Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it's a MUTA 8, serving Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know, we enjoy the camaraderie. You know, we may not always enjoy the things that we have to do during those inactive duty trainings, but we get the work done. We have a little bit of fun, and then we return to our civilian lives, right? So most of the time as a civilian, I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, which I enjoy. I've been doing it for over 22 years. And it really is a mission for me. I'm not just there for a paycheck. I have the privilege of working with fellow veterans and having that deployment, deployment, mobilization experiences both in the U.S. and overseas has expanded my appreciation, my empathy, my knowledge for what service members go through. But one of the perks of being a civilian social worker in the Department of Veterans Affairs is we get a lot of paid leave. And so here's something that may be unusual, but when I deployed with the Army National Guard 5 years ago, I genuinely thought of that experience as a sabbatical from the Department of Veterans Affairs. So, you know, as much as you enjoy working for an agency, working with your clients, you do experience some times where it's nice to be away. You know, whether I'm away for a deployment, whether I'm away on annual leave, you know, family vacations. Sometimes the military doesn't require me to be away for 5 or 6 months, like a deployment, but sometimes the military says, well, we need you to do this training for 1 week. Again, when I get those 1 week Army trainings, I think about those as a sabbatical from the VA, from the Department of Veterans Affairs, right? And then again, last month I got a chance to be on annual leave from the Department of Veterans Affairs for 3 weeks. So that was my sabbatical from the Army. That was my sabbatical from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I loved it. I had a great time. Got to travel to Japan with my wife, and we had an amazing time. So again, being a reservist, being a National Guard service member, my thesis is you get to enjoy the best of 3 worlds: civilian life, reservist life, and occasionally you get on active duty orders, right? And here's something that I've talked about in previous videos. I'll mention it again if you haven't seen those previous videos. But so when you are a reservist or a National Guard service member who is also a full-time federal employee, you will receive, currently it's 160 hours of paid military leave, which is in addition to annual leave, paid annual leave, which is in addition to paid sick leave, which is in addition to paid holiday leave. So when I'm on military leave away from the VA with the Army, I'm getting paid military leave up to 160 hours per fiscal year, which is amazing. So that is, again, that's part of my thesis, that being a reservist and being a civilian social worker with the Department of Veterans Affairs really is the best of 3 worlds. Not just the best of both worlds, but the best of 3 worlds. right? Because I enjoy when I'm at work. I enjoy when I'm at my full-time work at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Again, I enjoy that work, and it's similar, but it's also different from being on active duty, right? Active duty, there's a little bit more restrictions when you're on active duty that you don't experience when you are working in a civilian agency, right? And then when I'm on active duty orders, there's some of those situations where I get to enjoy the paid benefits from my civilian employment, in addition to whatever compensation that I'm receiving on those active duty orders. And then there are those situations where I'm away from the civilian employment and from the military, and I'm enjoying paid leave status, what we call annual leave. So, and aside from the monetary, because again, I've been talking about the monetary a lot in this video, but I would say non-monetary benefits of serving as a reservist and working as a social worker in the Department of Veterans Affairs are enormous. Again, my service as a reservist informs my service as a civilian social worker, and vice versa. I get to bring the things that I teach veterans at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I get to bring those insights, and I get to bring those interventions when I'm on deployment or mobilization, or even on inactive duty training status with the reserves or with the National Guard, right? There's been countless times over the years where I was able to bring interventions that I was using in the Department of Veterans Affairs into my practice with both the National Guard as a inactive duty training status, as well as on deployment with the National Guard. One of those things that I was able to bring to the National Guard from my practice in the Department of Veterans Affairs was an intervention called Wellness Recovery Action Plan, which I've talked about a lot on the lcsw network. So if you want to know more about the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, please view my previous videos where I've talked a lot about the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. So check those past videos out. But when I deployed with the National Guard, I was able to provide a lot of information to soldiers about the Wellness Recovery Action Plan and how soldiers can create and use their own Wellness Recovery Action Plan on deployment and during inactive duty training battle assemblies, right? So again, there are tremendous benefits to being a reservist or a National Guard service member social worker, and being a federal social worker, either in the Department of Veterans Affairs, or you could be a civilian in the Department of Defense as a social worker. You could be a civilian social worker in the Department of Health and Human Services, Bureau of Prisons, Indian Health Services, right? There's a lot of places where you can serve as a civilian social worker in the federal government. All right, I think I'm going to stop here, but I want to thank you all for watching this video. For all the social workers and other licensed mental health professionals, thank you for the work that you do every day, for your clients, for your agency, and for the profession. Please continue to support each other and yourselves. Bye for now.